Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Price Check Sports Podcast brought to you by the In the Zone Network, where we go city to city, state to state, worldwide. Tapping into a few different sports worlds today. We got a crazy start here to the month of March as we record this on Wednesday, March 13th. Kicked off NFL free agency. March Madness for college basketball is in full effect, and the NBA is still kicking right now. So you got a lot of playoff races in the NBA, a lot of teams punching their ticket to the NCAA tournament. But of course, today we are going to start with the NFL and their free agency, which of course legal tampering window started here on Monday. We are now at the point where those contracts can actually be signed and finalized. So we won't get into every individual sign. We won't get into every individual team's moves. We'll select a couple here that stand out as far as signings that I really like. And then a couple that are a little bit questionable in terms of whether the money is too much or maybe the fit circumstances aren't quite as ideal. So, first, let's start with the ones that I kind of view as my favorite signings or the best signings so far of free agency. Top of the list for me, Derrick Henry going to the Baltimore Ravens. King Henry, as he was referred to in Tennessee, I believe spent 7-8 years with the Titans, is now moving on to Baltimore on a 2-year deal worth up to $20 million with 9.5 guaranteed here in the first year. That's a pretty crazy move for the Ravens, meaning that like when you think about that team and historically what they've tried to go for, of course, they want to be physical. That the division that they are in, AFC North, a lot of physicality on both sides of the ball. Want to pound the rock. You want to be, a team that's difficult to stop in a number of different ways. The Ravens, of course, in the last couple of years, while Lamar Jackson has been a big part of their running game, they haven't had a running back like Derrick Henry at all. And so when you think about adding him and that power running ability with the ability to get Lamar Jackson, whether it's the read option or just getting him running outside, you are kind of setting up a pretty formidable running attack, a versatile running attack to be able to match with the passing game that they're trying to build there under offensive coordinator Todd Monken. And so, love that free agent acquisition for the Ravens. They'll still have guys like Justice Hill, Keith Mitchell coming off an injury that can be a little bit more of a change of pace for the team and being able to give them some different looks out of the backfield, whether it's guys who are going to catch a few more passes than maybe Derrick Henry will. But when you think about running between the tackles with Derrick Henry, but then also having that read option ability with Henry and Lamar Jackson, that's going to be real tough to stop for any defense, let alone the defenses within their division. So, absolutely love the Derrick Henry signing. Was running the ball one of the things that they needed to improve the most for the Ravens? Not necessarily, but they were a team that was this close to being able to make it to the Super Bowl last year. And you can argue if they had a running back like Derrick Henry that they believed in that game against Kansas City in the AFC Championship game, that might have been a slightly different outcome, or at least maybe a closer outcome than what it ultimately was. So, absolutely love the Derrick Henry signing for Baltimore. Think that is going to bolster their running game and their offense as a whole here for the next couple seasons. So, love that one. Also, love the two signings or the two bigger signings here by the Green Bay Packers. First one being running back Josh Jacobs from the now Las Vegas Raiders, signed him to a 4-year, $48 million deal. Which sounds like all of that guaranteed money is in the first year, maybe first 2 years. And then one guy safety Xavier McKinney from the New York Giants on a 4-year, $68 million deal. And so not only do you bolster your running game, which of course, the last couple of years, Aaron Jones has been a little bit of a wild card for them in terms of his ability to stay healthy. He also ended up moving on to the Vikings after being cut once Josh Jacobs was signed or at least agreed to the deal. And then you bolster your defense with Xavier McKinney, a defense that wasn't terrible, but gives them another playmaker on the back end and that secondary, joining, the Jaire Alexanders and giving them a little bit of an upgrade over a guy like a Darnell Savage. So, Green Bay, the reason I love this for them is because if you look at their roster and you look at their salary cap situation, this isn't a team that typically spends, but this year they have the luxury of literally just about every skill guy that they have on that offense being on some variation of a rookie deal. So whether it's, being in year 2 or year 3, all of these guys are making very minimal money compared to what they're probably going to be due to make in a couple years. And then defensively, outside of a guy like Jair Alexander, not a whole lot of money spread out on that side of the ball either. So you're able to now capitalize on a team that was actually pretty good down the stretch last year, and now is kind of set up to be able to compete for not only the division title the next few years, but start to push up on Super Bowl contention if things go right. And so you know that you have a guy that you can count on at quarterback now with Jordan Love. You give him a reliable running game along with the wide receivers and tight ends that they got here in the draft the past couple years. You're starting to build yourself a nice foundation on offense to be able to utilize here moving forward. And then again on defense, not only do you add another key piece, you stay kind of within the same timeline as far as youth goes. So love those signings for Green Bay, and I love that they're going for it in an NFC that really is kind of wide open right now. So love those signings for both the Ravens and the Packers. Now, here's where we get into some of the more questionable signings. I won't call them the worst signings because I don't know that these are the worst deals, but just ones that made me, kind of turn my eye a little bit. So, first one, Gabe Davis to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, I'm not questioning whether or not Gabe Davis can be a good receiver. We've seen it in flashes, right? Now he had a lot of games where he disappeared in Buffalo. Some of that due to playing alongside a guy like Stephon Diggs, but also some of that just due to Josh Allen not looking his way or not being able to have that connection with Josh Allen. But the reason why I question this a little bit, if I'm the Jaguars, is Gabe Davis really an upgrade for you over Calvin Ridley, who's also a free agent? And from the money standpoint, I don't have Gabe's contract details in front of me here, but I'd imagine Calvin Ridley's not demanding like crazy money given the season that he had. But I think from what you're signing in terms of what else you have on the roster with Gabe Davis, Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, I'm pretty sure Calvin really would be an upgrade over Gabe Davis, at least from what we've seen in a consistency standpoint. So a little bit questionable on that one. And of course, I understand trying to make sure to keep weapons around Trevor Lawrence to further his development, but just thought Calvin really would have been, a more logical re-sign versus bringing in Gabe Davis from Buffalo. So questioning that one for the Jaguars. The next one that I'm questioning, which was one of the biggest signings of the free agency period so far, Saquon Barkley to the Eagles. And I'm not questioning it because of it being Saquon or whether or not he's going to be able to be a fit on that offense. The offense already was good. They were already great at running the ball. My question is, does Saquon change anything about their destiny? And, again, offense was not their problem last year. Now, of course, they've made some other signings here on defense, bringing back C.J. Gardner-Johnson, bringing in Bryce Huff. I'm not sure that that's changing their standing and their ability to compete for a championship here moving forward. Again, the offense was already lights out. They were already great at not only running the ball, but being able to block for their running backs. Just thought you could bring back DeAndre Swift for, lesser money, keep that offense moving and invest even more money on the defensive side of the ball. So we'll see how that one turns out. I think Saquon as a just individual fit and individual player, definitely a great fit for the Eagles. Just not sure that that's what they needed, nor will that, take them from being, I guess they were like the 4 or 5 seed last year to being the number 1 seed in the NFC this upcoming season. So Saquon, just a little bit questionable on whether or not that changes the destiny for Philadelphia. And then, of course, the last signing that we'll get to here from NFL free agency had the Atlanta Falcons dropping the bag for Mr. Kirk Cousins. 4 years, $180 million, 100 of which is guaranteed. Again, similar to the Josh Jacobs deal, a lot of that, if not all of that, guaranteed money within the first couple of years of the deal. I just question this because, one, you have Kirk Cousins coming off of an Achilles tear. Not sure that I want to invest in, that for 4 years for a guy that already wasn't the most mobile quarterback. And then, it's still Kirk Cousins. Now, we've seen Kirk Cousins come up short in primetime games and playoff games quite a bit here throughout his career so far. Now, granted, you're putting him in a situation where he's got some of the best weapons he's had in his career in terms of Bijan Robinson and running back, Kyle Pitts at tight end, Drake London at wide receiver. Falcons also added Darnell Mooney from the Chicago Bears here so far in free agency as well. But, I I think more so than the fit, I'm questioning the amount of money and the amount of years you had to give to a guy who's, 35, 36, not, entering his prime by any means. And again, coming off a pretty major injury that we just have not seen a whole lot of players come back from and be they're, the same guy that they were prior to the injury. So just a little bit hesitant on the Kirk Cousins deal for those couple reasons there. But I do think he's a definite upgrade over Desmond Ritter and Taylor Heineke, but just not sure he's enough of an upgrade to justify the money that he's receiving, along with the amount of years that he's under contract. So those are kind of the free agency signings that caught my eye in the NFL. Now we'll shift gears a little bit to the NBA. Right. So NBA wise, we are in the thick of the kind of playoff hunt, playoff race. Today we'll kind of focus mainly on the Western Conference and specifically those teams that are like 5th through 10th. Because this race here for that bottom half of the playoff bracket is going to be pretty fascinating here over the last few weeks of the season. So you have the Pelicans in 5th. Obviously, they're a little bit further ahead of the likes of like Phoenix in 6th, Sacramento, Dallas, Lakers, Warriors. But you also have a team like the Clippers, who is in 4th, where we just saw them lose last night to Anthony Edwards, which Anthony Edwards, man, that dude turned into my favorite player to watch in the NBA right now. Even had some comments for the folks in the media after the game last night.
What were you seeing out there?
Just a bunch of mismatches.
So he's talking trash. He's he's playing at an extremely high level. Of course, they're without Karl-Anthony Towns right now, but I do still think the Timberwolves are in a pretty good position to at least hold in that 2 to 3 spot. I don't think they're going to end up being the 1 seed. I do think Denver OKC is going to secure that, but I definitely don't think they're dropping any lower than 3 right now with the way Anthony Edwards is playing. So we'll go ahead and kind of pencil them in. But as far as those teams in the bottom, you got a lot of teams right there jumbled up together. 6th through 10th in the NBA Western Conference right now, separated by 3.5 games. So 5 teams all within 3.5 games of each other. You've even got, 6 and 8 only separated by a game with Phoenix, Sacramento, and Dallas. Lakers and, of course, Warriors just right behind that group. But when you look at how some of these matchups are going to shake out, I think you're going to get a lot of teams that are in this bottom half, obviously trying to move up and secure, if they can, trying to get as high as 6. But then you're going to have some of those teams at the top watching this bottom half race, looking at like, I don't know if I want to play, Dallas or the Lakers in the first round. I don't know if I really want to be stuck facing Phoenix with Kevin Durant, a healthy Devin Booker, healthy Brad Beal in the first round. And so you wonder, obviously, how many of those teams are true contenders. And I think it's all going to be dependent on matchup this year. Look at a young team like Oklahoma City, where they are obviously playing very, very well this season. But those guys have not seen, real playoff tests just yet. Honestly, they went into the play-in last year, got the doors blown off by the Pelicans in a game that you thought that, okay, maybe they'll be able to hang around and get a win. No, not at all. So they were not able to get it done in the play-in last year. And those stakes are only going to be higher in the first round this year. I also don't love that they didn't go out and get another big. They went out, obviously, got Gordon Hayward to add to that wing depth. But when Chet Holmgren is your only real big man solution against the likes of Jokic or even an Anthony Davis in the Western Conference, not really, what you're looking for against some of those teams that you may have to face. Hell, even a Sacramento having a guy like Sabonis is going to be able to, give some matchup problems to Chet here once you actually get into a playoff series. So I definitely think that as you start to see some of that movement, these teams are going to be jockeying for position, but also jockeying for the right matchup to help them, propel into second round and beyond come playoff time. So out of these teams at the bottom, though, if I had to give anybody a great shot at kind of moving up, I do think Dallas is a team to watch right now, man. Dallas, Luka is playing out of his mind. I believe 7 straight triple doubles, all 20 points or more. He's playing MVP caliber level. Now, I don't think he's actually going to win MVP. They're too low in the standings for that, but he's playing an MVP caliber level. Kyrie Irving averaging 25 plus a night right now, and it's not even getting talked about. They have the ability to score with anybody. I think the problem for them is just going to be how many stops they're going to be able to get on the defensive end. But I do think Dallas is going to be a team to watch come playoff time, depending on the matchup, because we've seen, in previous years, Luka's going to go off in these playoff matchups. He's done it to the Clippers. He made the Western Conference Finals run against the Warriors a couple years ago, doing it to the Suns in that crazy Game 7 that he had in the first half. So Luka is able to be one of those guys to put the team on his back and be able to win you a series by himself. And that's not going to be something that I'm looking forward to if I'm in OKC or Minnesota. Maybe, Denver obviously equipped to handle something like that. But even then, having to see that as your first round playoff matchup, not ideal. The Lakers, obviously, home team for me, but I do think that with a healthy LeBron James, healthy Anthony Davis, especially the way Anthony Davis just played on Sunday against Minnesota, 27 points and 25 rebounds, I do think they can make a splash. The problem is going to be how you get the most out of the supporting cast around those guys. D'Angelo Russell been playing lights out, but can he keep it up the entire playoffs? Austin Reeves, can he find his playoff and late season form from last year? Can you continue to get the same production out of a guy like Rui Hachimura? So some questions about supporting cast there, but if LeBron James and Anthony Davis are on their A game, definitely not a team that, again, if you're Minnesota, Oklahoma City, that I want to see in the first round. Hell, even the Clippers definitely don't want to see that on either side, whether it's Dallas or the Lakers for them. The Warriors, to a lesser extent, I also believe can kind of be in that mix. The problem for me is that I don't know what I'm getting from anybody outside of Steph on a night-to-night basis for them. Now, granted, a lot of these guys, with the exception of like Podziemski or Jackson Davis, some of the rookie guys that they have, a lot of those guys have seen the playoffs, seen those wars here, at least when they made the championship run in 2022. But I do think, their supporting cast is a little bit more questionable than some of these other teams. And then when you look at a team like Phoenix and Sacramento, those are two teams that I think probably could end up sliding back a little bit further into that play-in where, Phoenix, again, they're an injury away at all times from being able to go on a 2, 3, 4 game losing streak, depending on who it is. They've gotten a fully healthy season out of Kevin Durant for the most part this year. Brad Beal, being in and out of the lineup has definitely hurt them a little bit. He has been healthy and playing well, though, these last few weeks. So obviously hoping that continues. And Devin Booker is going to be Devin Booker, right? He's going to be the assassin when he's on the floor, but also not immune to an injury himself. So that's a team. And then, if you think about some of the supporting guys that they have, they're already a thin group. If you lose any of those role players, that's going to make it just that much more difficult for them, not only in terms of potentially saving themselves from a play-in spot, but just getting out of the first round in general. So Phoenix, I'm a little hesitant on whether or not they're going to be able to make a deep run. Sacramento, I think it's the same as last year, where we know that they can score with just about anybody, especially when they are the home team. But how they played on the road, and then also just how they play defensively, I don't know that that's going to be sustainable for multiple rounds. We saw them lose a series last year to the Golden State Warriors, where if you think about it, they probably were the better team. The Warriors just, haven't been there before, haven't been through those fights. They were just able to get it done and pull it out. And then, of course, when Steph's dropping 50 on you, just nothing you can do. So I do think the Western Conference place is going to be really interesting as we get down to the wire here over these last few weeks of the regular season. Eastern Conference, I think, is the Celtics, conference to lose at this point. But also for them, depending on the matchup, if they have to see a Miami Heat team or something like that in the first round, things can get a little bit dicey. But right now, I think the Western Conference is the conference that is the most interesting, and the one that we're definitely going to need to keep our eyes on here moving forward. Now, switching gears to college basketball. So, of course, women's college basketball has been the talk of the town here the last few weeks, last few days, especially since the SEC championship game between South Carolina and LSU here on Sunday. Now, won't talk too much about the whole, fight or, what you want to call it, pushing and shoving matchup that you have with Camila Cardozo, Flau'jae Johnson. But I do need to make sure that we highlight what is happening right now in women's college basketball specifically. This is a moment that I don't think we've ever had with women's sports in general, let alone women's college basketball. You have major stars on the college basketball side for the women's. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Camila Cardozo, Flau'jae Johnson. You've got Morrow from Texas. You've got countless names and teams that are going to be in the mix. Where we don't have that star power in college basketball on the men's side, which of course we don't need to take away from the men to boost the women's game. I think the women's game is giving themselves a boost enough right now with the stars names they have. Juju Watkins being another one from USC, where the talent is so obviously there. The intensity of these games is so obviously there. And I really think that this moment for them, March Madness and the NCAA tournament, is really going to be something that is going to be a launching point for the sport moving forward. You look at all the teams, all the players that are going to be participating in this tournament. It's going to be must see TV. And I do think that for the first time in a long time, you're going to have a lot of eyeballs on not only the tournament itself, but the players coming out of this tournament. And I do think this is going to be an overall boost to not only women's college basketball, but women's basketball, period, when you think about the WNBA moving forward and how some of these stars like Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese are going to be able to move into the WNBA. But then also you're going to still have some of these folks in college where this is going to continue right now, and it's starting to kind of look like what men's college basketball looked like in, let's say, like the 80s and 90s, where some of the most recognizable faces in basketball, period, are in the college games. Just this time it's going to be women versus men. And so I think that this is going to be something that we need to really be tapped into because, one, the games have been incredible. I mean, even outside of what happened with the incident between LSU and South Carolina on Sunday, the game was great. The regular season game they played a few weeks back was great. USC and Stanford on Sunday, great game, great matchup. Even though Juju Watkins didn't have a great individual scoring game, she was still able to affect the game. Forbes, her teammate, had an outstanding game and being able to boost them over Stanford and win the Pac-12 championship, final Pac-12 tournament of their existence. And so, I think having that star power and having that name recognition, but also having these teams being able to have some consistency and some sustainability here over the course of a few years is just something that's going to give them a boost that the men's game does not have right now. And so I do think we really need to be tapped into what's happening in women's college basketball because this is going to be a moment that really blows the sport up in the best way possible moving forward. So really going to be locked in to see how these matchups play out over the course of the tournament. If I had to give a prediction, obviously not knowing how the actual brackets themselves are going to shake out, I obviously think we're going to get South Carolina in the Final Four. I don't see a way that Caitlin Clark and Iowa don't make it to the Final Four. USC, man, this is going to be a prime spot for a player like Juju Watkins to be able to put a team on her back, or at least have some big performances that just boost that level of star power for her. And then, of course, you can't count out LSU. And so, obviously you're going to have teams like Stanford, Iowa State, Texas. Those teams are going to be in the mix as well. So it's going to be real interesting and real fun to watch. Man, I really cannot wait to see how this women's tournament plays out. So that'll do it here for the price check. Now, before we go, do need to give out a few betting picks for tonight here in the NBA. Again, Wednesday, March 13th, as we record this. Got a couple matchups. We're only doing money lines tonight, right? And so right now, and I do not have the odds in front of me, forgive me, but right now, Magic and Nets in Orlando, I've got the Magic winning that game. I have the Denver Nuggets going on the road against the Miami Heat, winning that game. And I also have the Lakers beating the Kings tonight in a must-win game in Sacramento. Again, the Lakers in a position where they absolutely need this game to be able to move up in the standings if that's going to be a hope for them before the playoffs start. So you got Lakers, Magic, Nuggets, all to win tonight. 3-team parlay. Go ahead, put it in, whether it's FanDuel, DraftKings, whatever sites you prefer. But that's what we're going with for our betting picks for today. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, this has been The Price Check. I am your host, Josh Price. Until next time, check it out.